Hello.
Hello. Great to see you.
We are now on, Marcia. You can get started.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Marcia Eckerd. I am very excited and happy to invite you to our discussion. And I'm really looking forward to this. We have a really interesting group of women who are all in this autistic space and all into advocacy, and everybody has experience and knowledge and just a wealth of ideas to bring to our discussion. And so first I'm going to tell you who's here, and then I'm going to let people say a word or two about themselves if they'd like to. As an introduction, though, I think one of the things that I would say is that people don't really know that much about autistic women. I mean, so many of the women that I meet have been told that you can't possibly be autistic. You're not what autistic looks like. You're not looking like Sheldon. And so I think having a discussion group of women talking about our experiences and ideas is going to help kind of bring more information into that space. So I'd like to introduce Alyssa Casey, who is in the pink shirt in the lower left corner as I see her. And Jennifer, I'm going to mess up your name after all that, McElwee Myers. Did I do okay? Okay.
You did great.
Amy Krewalt, Marianne Hughes, and Joy Everhart. And I'd like to say I'm so glad you're all here. It's exciting. And would you like to you say a couple words about yourself, whatever you'd like to share?
Okay.
Jennifer, you go first.
Okay. My name is Jennifer, as she said. I got diagnosed with Asperger's in 2002. Asperger's is a funny way to spell autism. And ever since then, I've been getting involved with parents. You know, I basically tried to find out what was going on, showed up at an ASA meeting and found out none of the moms understood special interests or sensory issues, and they were banging their heads against a wall all day doing the wrong thing. So that's my job in life, is to explain, no, it's okay. Your kid is allowed to do that, okay?
Okay, great. Alyssa?
Yeah, so obviously my name's Alyssa. I work in the insurance industry. I was also diagnosed with Asperger's around 2010. So it's been a lot of a learning curve, and I do have a lot of friends who have children who are on the spectrum as well. So we're very involved with getting them in autistic groups too, for like mommy and me classes and things like that.
Cool. Joy.
Hi, my name is Joy Everhart, and I just want to call it, I'm specifically saying Dr. Joy not to mean like I'm above anyone, but I want to call out just the importance of professionals being able to recognize autism and autistic identities. I work as a pediatrician. I'm also a parent and a person, I like to say as well. And I specifically see a lot of neurodivergent kids, and we've been seeing a lot of teens who are born with ovaries, and some, identified variants of, of the whole binary, whether it's, anyway, lots of different aspects with that. So I love the work that I do, and I think it just has to be talked about all the more, and we need to advocate for especially those younger generations as far as well-being.
Amy?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a little jealous that some of you have had diagnoses for quite a while. I only had my diagnosis a couple of years ago. I'm 46, so I was diagnosed at 42. And after my twins were diagnosed in 2018 and 2019, and I had my diagnosis in 2020 in the middle of COVID. So I'm a parent and a social media manager. I used to be a concert pianist. I spent 30 years as a
Wow.
concert pianist. So I had to quit, when I became a parent. But so I spend my time now as an advocate. My children can't go to school because public school is not set up to support, children like mine. One of my children uses an AAC to communicate. So that's been an issue with public school. That's actually why she can't go to school anymore. So I'm on the board of the Northwest Augmentative Communication Society, and I also volunteer with the Alliance Against Exclusion and Restraint.
And Mary Ann.
Hi, Marcia. I'm Mary Ann Hughes. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm the mom of 2 now young men on opposite ends of the autism spectrum. And several years ago, I got divorced, went through a divorce process, and I couldn't find the resources to help me advocate for my kids' needs. So learned on my own what to do, spent a lot of time, money, and effort getting a good result for my family, which I'm proud of. But it's like to help others, and I form Special Family Transitions, and I am now a certified special needs divorce coach. So I help families going through transitions, whether it be divorce or parenting or whatever else they might need help with. So I'm proud of the work that I do and try to raise awareness that people, this is a common issue affecting our families, and that there is help out there.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that a lot of us are, and I'm a psychologist, and I do a lot of advocacy. I do a lot of work with women on the spectrum, as well as advocating for kids, kind of like many of the rest of you. And so what it struck me how many of us are all advocating for kids, trying to sort of translate out what the experience is of kids, and trying to help people understand them, understand their needs, in some in special situations sometimes, but also in general. And I just wondered, does anybody want to speak to that? Like, how are our kids misunderstood?
Basically, the assumption is that they're responding to the world in bad ways, either bad psychologically or morally, when they're responding to the world in perfectly sane ways that are not morally bad, but they're responding to their experience of the world. So trying to explain to somebody, this kid is not experiencing what you're experiencing. So his behavior is based on real stuff. He's getting upset because he's in excruciating pain. He's not, I've had parents and teachers say, I think he's trying to drive me crazy. And I'm like, first of all, if he had the social skill level to do that, that would be a plus, actually. If he could think about manipulating other people at this age, that would be super sophisticated. It is. Everybody's doing their best with what they have most of the time.
Right. How about Mary Ann and Joy? You're both working with kids. Are you finding you're having to sort of explain, interpret kids to parents or to schools or to other people in the judicial system or wherever?
Yeah, so mainly I work with the parents, but the other day I presented to a group of educational diagnosticians about transitions and the perspective of parents, of kids, and things to be aware of, about things that they may see every day in terms of trying to do their job, but maybe they're not relating to the grief cycle and the struggles that both the parents and the kids are going through in terms of aging out the school system, what comes next. And that is something that I went through myself during my divorce, but also ongoing in terms of what's the right fit for my child, whether it be post-high school or even as a parent when they were young, to figure out what the next step is. So it never ends in terms of planning for your child or young adult, because their needs may change, their abilities may change and improve and vary over time. So we have to find the right placement, the right setting, the right therapist, the right teachers, whatever it might be, so that they can grow and develop to the best of their abilities.
And if I can jump in, I would say I have a twofold answers. One as a pediatrician, Orchid Pediatrics, where I'm seeing kids with multiple different behaviors and talking about behavior as communication. Kids are communicating something with their behavior and not labeling it as good or bad. And what does that behavior communicate, and what is the kid trying to ask for? What are they needing from their behavior? And I think that's when it's also really significant, where how is behaviors, those are born with ovaries, identify as female, they can be quite distinctly different than those that are born with testicles or identify as male. And so I think that's where there's still room for growth in the autism world, of continuing to recognize that. I think there has been a significant amount of growth. And then my experience too as a parent of an autistic 8-year-old and navigating that, where there's certain expectations. I think a lot of times when you have a difference, and I do think because the world doesn't have a space to understand it many times, I do think it's important to look at as autism as a disability. And so when you have a disability, what does that mean? How do you advocate for your kid with their behavior as the world doesn't understand? And especially when it's invisible, right? If you're a wheelchair user, it's obvious you need a ramp, versus if you have auditory sensitivities or whatever it may be, it's maybe not as obvious that the hallway or whatever it is overwhelming. So that's what I would add.
Yeah, I mean, the whole issue of sensory overload is pretty big, right?
Yeah, it really is. And I guess that's where I would say as a person, like, it's hard for me to work in healthcare, right? Like, it's just physically painful many times. And so it's something I don't like to really talk about or address, how the struggles. I think what makes me a very empathic person also makes it difficult for me to do the work I do or live in the world. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I'm hearing is that autistic parents of autistic kids don't necessarily have a lot of people who are either knowing how to give support, much less how to interpret their kids. Amy, you were nodding.
Yes, I think it's one of the most lonely experiences that I was not expecting it to be such an isolating experience. I think I was looking forward to parenting in that way, having felt so isolated most of my life. I thought, oh, well, now I'm going to have friends. I'm going to have mom friends. I'm going to be part of the club, But it's not just that we have children who have disabilities. So we are now, okay, we're over here, we're in isolation town. We're autistic ourselves. So we have a totally different space that we're in as well. And we don't have support. We don't have a lot of services or groups that we can engage in. It is very hard to find other like-minded people that we can connect with. A lot of us are like disengaged from our families for a lot of reasons as well. So it is extremely overwhelming, overwhelming and an isolating experience for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that idea that parents don't necessarily know how to find each other. I mean, people are out there and having this experience and having this knowledge, but how do you find them? Do you know what I mean?
Right. Well, social media has been a wonderful accessibility tool for that. I mean, we've found advocacy groups and other ways that we can connect that, because of distance, we wouldn't find each other otherwise. But it's still, finding in-person support, which is what we really need. We need somebody that other people have that, okay, we have our neighbor's going to come over and just take the load off for a little bit, or bring a casserole. I'm from the 80s, bring a casserole, we don't have that, that same support.
No, because as you said, being autistic, as autistic adults, you don't necessarily get that kind of support. And, I'm kind of like to sort of take that with something Marianne brought up, which is the whole idea of transitioning too, because we're not just where we are right now, but we're trying to ourselves get to a place of support, but also for our kids, as you said, they grow up, go get a job, Alyssa, you're our young adult here, but I'm sure you too went through this issue of having to figure out who you were, find a place in the world, get a job.
Yeah, it was definitely very overwhelming. Like everyone says, the lack of support and lack of understanding, and like things that would bother me maybe don't bother other people. So people don't see them as big deals and they think maybe you're overreacting.
Yeah, that's what everyone gets called, like a drama queen or attention seeking. That's one of the big things, right?
Oh yes, you're being dramatic, stop over emoting, stop being, and it's like, no, I'm actually in that much pain.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting that here we are in a conference of like-minded people, but so many of us have the experience of being so isolated, you know? Well, you know, another issue that I think is a big one for you know, the expectation is that women aren't isolated, right? That women are supposed to be connected. And whereas, you know, I remember I was talking to one woman and she's talked about being a mother and how the mothers at the bus stop all kind of just merged into a group. And how did they do that? You know? And so what that brings to my mind, in addition to the issues we've been talking about, is the whole issue of masking. That I think for women especially, there's just this enormous pressure to look like you fit. Everybody's nodding.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like when I was diagnosed, my parents sent me to like therapy almost to like teach me how to mask so I could appear normal, like eye contact, how to respond in social situations. And it's just exhausting pretending to be, you know, something you're not.
Mm-hmm.
And it's society just expects that, like at work, you have to mask or else, you know what I mean? Like it's just not going to work out.
Does everyone agree you have to mask?
Basically, if you can do a certain amount of masking, it's convenient. There are situations where other people will try to demand it. What you give them, getting to the point where you realize what you give other people in the way of masking is up to you and not them, is a crucial stage. I'm very lucky. I saw myself as an outsider as a child. I saw myself as Jane Goodall or Diane Fossey observing these weird apes around me and trying to figure out how to work with them. So instead of having someone say, you have to do things a certain way, I was like, ooh, how do I interact with this strange species? So I learned a lot of useful behaviors that way. Unfortunately, what we teach girls is you have to conform, as opposed to learn behaviors that will help you get what you want. And that's a bad approach, really.
Yeah, I'd love to hear what some of the rest of you think about that. That so much of the teaching of social skills is exactly what Alyssa said. You know, here's what you do to look normal, okay? Make eye contact, do this, do that, have this expression. I had talked to one woman who talked about every morning she put on her Disney princess mask. So, you know, how about others of you, either in kids or in yourselves?
I grew up with my mother. I mean, I was on stage because I was I was a pianist from the time I was 3 years old.
Wow.
So I had to perform, you know, not just on stage, but all the time. But my mother was always telling me, well, be more ladylike, you know, be more. So that was like, you know, the code for, okay, well, be nice, be socially acceptable, you know, because I was always goofing off and being silly and being inappropriate, I guess. So I think that was definitely ingrained into me. And I still rebel against that. I have the pathological demand avoidance profile, so I'm always kind of like, But what I always think of about masking, and I was writing about this just yesterday. When I got my diagnosis, I can see so clearly the change in my face in pictures. How I could see the transformation of how genuine my smile became, versus like looking at photos of my childhood, and even in the years leading up to that, it was like a very different, forced kind of smile. Once I had my diagnosis, it was so different. That self-acceptance was, so much different. So I think the masking is so strong that it just becomes part of our skin. It really is like, it really is. You can see it in photos if you look throughout your life.
I'm not intending to call on people, but Marianne, you were talking about having to deal with courts, and there I would be making judgments about who's doing well by kids or what kids' needs are. Are they expecting that the parent who gets the kids to look right is a better parent?
First of all, I want to say about the masking. I guess a lot of parents, I come at it from a parent perspective. For instance, my kids will come home. My son, who's more verbal and able to mask, he has to decompress. So I think it's interesting for parents to understand what it takes for someone to be masking all day and to perform to society's needs and requests, and then how they are when they get home, when they have to kind of decompress. But to answer your question, Marcia, what I find is a challenge sometimes in these cases where people are trying to determine what's best for the child. You have parents who don't necessarily agree and see the child in the same way. They may not, especially if someone's pretty high functioning or has a lot of skills. There may be one parent who only sees maybe one side of them, maybe the masking side, and the other parent sees them as they are when they're struggling with their homework, with social skills, whatever it might be. And so that becomes an issue in a lot of these cases. Does a child have a disability? Do they have a special challenge that we're trying to address as part of the divorce? And that becomes a cause of conflict in terms of different things, but kind of goes down to the child support and how we're going to support this child's needs and what their needs are going to be in the future. So that becomes a big issue where then you have to prove sometimes disability, or you have to show what the needs are, what the challenges are, how can we support this child or young adult or whoever they may be, so that they can continue to succeed after the divorce. And so part of it is how the divorce is handled, hopefully in a positive fashion. That way you have a good relationship with both parents as the child and able to see them both. But sadly, sometimes one parent is out of the picture or has a totally different view and is not buying into that child's needs and who they are. So I see that as a challenge. And so we've got to bring in experts sometimes and show those who don't really understand autism and different things that go along with that as to what it means, what a day in the life of that person might look like, and the kind of supports they would need from both parents as part of the process.
Right. I mean, I think that it's not just divorcing parents who don't recognize what people are going through on the inside. It's also teachers as employers, people who you're having to relate to as peers, and if people sort of don't believe your experience. Is that anybody's experience of others not believing you?
Well, yeah, you have the double whammy of being autistic and being a woman. And, when women identify their own pain, a lot of times people don't believe them. And I mean, it's definitely been shown that doctors discount women's report of their own pain. When you say this is a real problem for me, people think you're exaggerating because you're a girl. So self-advocacy winds up with this aspect that's where you're I find myself trying to prove things when it's like, if I say I need to go someplace quiet, realistically, that's all there is to say. And yet I'll get into a whole discussion where, well, you've been handling this all day. Well, you did this. Well, you did that. And honestly, I'm 58 years old. I'm starting to just walk the heck away from those conversations.
Joy, Dr. Joy.
Yes, or yeah, Joy too. Yeah.
Well,
Well-
there's a lot of criticism of healthcare professionals not getting this.
Yeah, rightfully so. Rightfully so. I feel like I apologize most days for my profession. So apologies to all of you for those experiences you've had that were traumatizing and dehumanizing. So it happens. It continues to happen. Yes to the masking. I think it's a safety piece, right? And in my mind, I kind of figure out how much I have to mask every day. And some days I decide, okay, my lower masking days than others. I picked up my kiddo from school just today, and I looked at that teacher and I was like, oh my goodness, like how put together she looked. I was like, she had to wash her hair and blow dry her hair and do all of her makeup and all of her clothes. And then she had this leather jacket on. I was like, I bet that's just so uncomfortable. I was like, the sensory load of just getting ready for the day. I was just overwhelmed looking at her. And so that was just interesting, because I keep my hair short, so I don't really have to brush it, and I do shower, but I shower when I need to, and like to wear my sweats and kind of feel that comfort that way. But it was striking to me, just as far as pick up that, the awareness. And I think I think people don't realize that autistic people are aware, right? They're aware of those differences and just wanting to fit in. And so if for me to do it, yeah, I can, but it just takes a lot of energy. And I think that's the other piece with masking. And I think a couple of you alluded to that, where just when you get home, right, or when you get to a safe space, it can be falling apart, and just be really able to dysregulating and to regulate. So I think that's really significant. Yeah, I could speak on and on about it more, but I think it needs to be discussed. And I think the other thing I would say is, when I talk with teens, and they, with autistic and kind of struggling with the social norms and fitting in, and sometimes I talk with the parents where, sometimes it's good for them to be able to mask, but I don't want them to have to, right? So just really explaining to the parents the stress that is for their teen to mask, and not requiring that for their teen to always mask.
Wow, it must be really hard for autistic kids to not have autistic parents. I mean, like my family, like my dad got diagnosed at 73. We're all, my kid brother got diagnosed, and then like dominoes, because my dad, when I couldn't make eye contact with my teacher, he was like, honey, I'm a sales engineer. I have to make eye contact. So I try to be honest. I try to give good information. But if I don't make eye contact, my customers just can't believe me. It's just something they need. And we discussed it. And he's like, you want to look at the bridge of the nose. You don't want to stare at someone's eyes. If they look away, you look. But I had an entire discussion of, we do this because other people need it to have a successful interaction. I can have that conversation. When it's just, look at me, look at my eyes, look me in the eye, look me in the eye. It's crazy making to just be forced to mask, and you're not given a reason, and you're not given, we teach kids to look people in the eye, and frankly, constant eye contact is threatening and weird. But I feel very lucky that masking was taught to me. It wasn't called masking, but it was, we need to do this to get here. And when we leave the house, we do this. At home, we can do what we usually do, But when we go out, we have to do this. Okay, I can cope with that because I have a home to go to where it's safe.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Alyssa? You mentioned how exhausting it is.
Mm.
Yeah, it is, because like where I work in like a people-facing career, I find if I want to be myself, I come across as maybe rude or uninterested, when that's not the case. I'm just very short and to the point.
Mhm.
So I really had to force myself to learn small talk, and it is just exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I don't care how the weather is. I personally don't really care about your day. Like,
Mm.
Yeah, on Autism Today, they wanted us to come up with, T-shirts and saying to put on a T-shirt and mugs and things. And mine is small talk is stupid and meaningless, but people do it anyway.
Mm. All it
yeah,
is.
I had someone tell me the other day, well, nobody likes small talk. And I'm like, well, then why do you do it? You know what I mean? Like, why are you
Is
forcing
the
it on me
exact
if you don't like it
equivalent.
either?
Oh,
Some people are comfortable with silence, I think. But as a parent, I guess this conversation is really interesting because, what is it that we should encourage our kids to do? You mentioned careers that require a lot of customer facing, and then there's some careers and opportunities that maybe you don't have to have as much contact. So what would you suggest for parents when they're trying to help their child or young adult find something in terms of careers or positions, and how would they handle that?
Oh, that's a good question to toss out to everybody. What do you think? What would you suggest?
You really need to figure out what the strengths and weaknesses are. Like, I mean, some people on the spectrum are really good at customer facing and some are not. And if you're not, maybe computer is the way for you to go. Like coding, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you hit the critical word, Liz, which is strengths.
mhm.
So often I think those of us on the spectrum are defined by our deficits or by our challenges or what we can't do, instead of leaning into what we can do. I mean, Amy, you started out as a concert pianist, I mean, wow. At the same time, that was sort of like pushing you to act the part. Do you know what I mean? And so if you could have just been a concert pianist and just thrown yourself into the music without someone expecting you to look like something,
Right. Yeah. I mean, that was, it was a strange thing because it was one of those, my mother she wanted to be a concert pianist. So I was a
Ooh.
concert pianist. I just happened to have the talent for it, so it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it. It's just that I think I was more like my father, and that I was a much more quiet personality than she was. So I wasn't really as performance minded. So yeah, I don't know how I ended up doing what I'm doing now. I think because I'm an agoraphobic Gen Xer, and I, like social media is my accessibility. So I had to figure out how to, make it work, make it accessible for myself, and figure out everything about it. So it's like, well, I may as well do it, like figure out how to make money doing it. Being a parent, like a stay-at-home parent with my kids at home, I was like, well, I got to do something. And my husband, he's one of the coding autistics, so he works. So I kind of like picked up some stuff from him. He used to work for like Facebook and Instagram, so I was like, well, I gotta figure out, I'll get some tips from his algorithm skills. But yeah, it's we just kind of I think if I had not had to mask at all in my life, I would have been a writer from the time I was, like little. That's literally how I would write essays when I was a kid about wanting to be a writer. And my kids now, that's what I focus on doing now is just accommodating their needs and encouraging their special interests. My daughter, she has communication challenges, but because I've been able to support her communication with assistive technology, she has developed so many, she can communicate however she needs to because of that. And so it has not impacted her learning or her ability to do anything. And I feel like she's probably the most confident of my 3 children as a result. And she's a brilliant artist. And like she'll just like I think it was yesterday she came downstairs and I said, "Oh, hi Alice." And she says, "Hi. And I'm very fashionable." Just nothing to do with anything. But I try to just I honestly don't think my kids know how to mask. I don't think they know how to mask. And I don't know if that's because I keep them home now and they're homeschooled, and but because I just constantly encourage them to just do whatever they want and just be themselves and just support their needs as best I can. So I hope that they'll just do whatever they want, because I never had that. I didn't have that opportunity. I'm 46 and I'm just now kind of feeling like I have the chance to sit down and write, you know. So
I think this whole idea of what as adults, there's so many more choices that you can make about masking, about what you're doing, and that I think knowing yourself is so important. And everybody was diagnosed relatively late, and sort of trying to figure yourself out when people aren't validating what your experience is or what you are, and telling you that you're being, you're attention seeking, or you're being manipulative because you want everyone to turn the music down, or you're, something like that. It's part of, I think, guiding kids is helping them know themselves. And accept themselves, and that way you can find somewhere to go that not only is that works with your interest, but also is a good environment for you to be in. If you might be a brilliant writer, and there are some people who are on the spectrum who are extroverts, and so you might enjoy writing for Saturday Night Live, or you might prefer to be somewhere where you're really by yourself and where it's quiet and you can wear earphones if you need to. And so I think it's a combination of who are you, what makes you tick and makes you want to do things, and also what kind of environment do you need to thrive. Does anyone else find that?
I think environment's everything. It's just, relationships, environment. But it's one of the things I talk with families, and what I think about for my kids as well, and for myself. We can't expect a kid to do well and thrive if they're not feeling safe, if they're not, able to, have interest in where they're at. It broke my heart the other day where a kid was really struggling attending school, and the school was telling the parents to keep home really boring so the kid would want to go to school. And I was just like, no problem. Like, the kid is so stressed attending school. Let's look at the environment there, for the kid, and see what we can do as far as a fit. And I guess what I would say is my personal experience. I've always been really sensitive to smells, and then I've when I was pregnant with my kids, that just was 100 times more sensitive.
Oh yeah.
Or even 1,000,000. And I just remember really struggling going into buildings, like I was feeling suffocated. And I found I was so relieved when COVID came around that other people were aware of like ventilation and air quality. I was like, light bulb, like, thank goodness other people think of this. And they changed the air quality in the clinic noticeably for me. And I was like, I wish that had happened years ago. So I think it's really is significant. And if there's ways we can communicate that for all autistic people, and it can really make a difference between just barely getting through the day versus thriving, or at least not wilting.
Yeah, working from home certainly helps.
Oh gosh, yes.
Assuming you don't have young children. I'm just calling that out.
Oh, that's true. Oh, I don't have kids. I don't want anybody touching my action figures. I don't have kids. I don't share.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I'm glad you made that point. Being a mother and having kids, you know, Alyssa, you're able to control your environment, and if you want it to be quiet, it's quiet. But if you've got kids running around at home, and they're, you know, that's harder. You know, that's one aspect of mothering that I think is important, you know, for a mom on the spectrum, is when, like, you have trouble with noise and the kids are noisy, or, you know, and is that something people have experienced?
Yes. Yes. Auditory stimulation is what will bring me to a meltdown, you know, quicker than anything. And children are noisier than anything. So it has been such a challenge for me as a parent. And I love my children more than anything. I fight for them every day. I will do anything for my children. I'm seriously, like, you know, I tried for 4 years to have children. You know, it was my everything. But oh my goodness, it has been so hard from a sensory standpoint, and to learn how to, you know, like sit, you know, so there are some days when I'm just like sitting in a chair doing, you know, I'll just like be scrolling my phone or doing whatever I can to just like deal with the noise. I just bought some loops, you know, like trying to figure out what to do, because, you know, and then it's funny, my daughter, she is a big vocal stimmer. So she does a lot of singing, a lot of, you know, just a lot of echolalia. And, you know, of course, I want her to do that because that's how she processes information and processes her words but oh my goodness, it can get so hard. And that's, again, when we go back to like the isolation factor of like, well, I have nobody to give me a break. So we have to figure out how to accommodate ourselves and, you know, find tools to use to cope with that, and how to regulate at the end of the day or throughout the day, take breaks, because yeah, it's hard. The only thing that I think is worse for me is if I have to go to IKEA.
Oh,
IKEA?
IKEA.
no.
I think that's the only more overstimulating thing than having children is going to IKEA.
I think Costco's up there too.
Yeah.
Disneyland in August.
I was just going to say Costco at 5 p.m. It's like the worst.
Thank goodness for Instacart, because otherwise I'd never go anywhere.
The number of time I've had parents say, "Why does my kid lie on the ground and scream at Costco?" And it's like,
I would do the
because
same
it's
thing.
Costco.
Yeah, if I had to go,
mean,
I'd do the exact same
They're
thing.
responding appropriately.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what you do at Costco.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we don't have that much time left, and we're covering a lot of subjects, both for kids and adults, and our own experiences. But one thing I want to hit on is that when we're all talking about how exhausting this is, you know, whether it's working or being with peers or parenting or whatever, that, you know, Amy, you brought up self-regulation and, you know, kind of finding what works for you, but also the whole issue of burnout. That when you're spending so much energy trying to make it work, that there comes a point where, you know, if you're not adequately able to use enough self-regulation, you're going to burn out. Does anyone?
I'm glad you mentioned that, Amy and Marcia, because you talk about burnout. You also talked about getting help and getting some breaks and downtime. And that's something that I think is helpful for parents as well as families, is to have somebody come in and give somebody a break. It could be for the parent, it could be a caregiver, whoever it is, just to be able to walk away, have some quiet time, and have everybody else kind of re-energize and kind of reset to what they need to do to be peaceful again. Because I know I had an instance where my son did have a meltdown at Costco. He specified that he didn't want to go to a particular store because it was very loud. And then I paid attention. It's like, there's music playing, there's babies crying. It was very overwhelming. And Costco actually was quiet compared to that store. But we have to find ways that we can give ourselves a break and give those around us a break. And sometimes it's hard to find people to do that, but hopefully.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, giving yourself permission not to do stuff. And I'm at the front edge of Gen X. I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and, people would talk about, literally in the newspaper, the mall is the new social center. And so that's what I went to because it was what you did. You're a teenager, it's 1984, you go to the mall, that's what you do. And it wasn't, my life got better when I gave myself permission to not go to the mall anymore, even though that was clearly what we were socially supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're always looking to read what you're supposed to be doing, where you can fit in, and to just go, okay, I'm not going to do certain things, whether other people expect it or not. That will save you so much time being burned out.
And it's challenging as a parent when you understand that and you're trying to advocate for that for your kid. But the demand on you for them is to make them do something different. I'm just, and I think, Joy, I share your apology for people, you're talking about healthcare. I'm talking about people, in the mental health field, of people just not getting it. Unfortunately, also not supporting autistic kids, autistic parents, by not understanding the needs that everyone's coping with. So if we're going to end, I'd like to end on a positive note, which is this idea of self-acceptance. I mean, what really so many of us are talking about is being able to say, yes, this is what I need. This is what I need to be healthy and to be me, and to be able to kind of wrap our minds around that and go there. Anybody else think that's a big thing?
I think that's I think that's just everything, right? Like, meaning if we can have that acceptance and accept our reactions and the way we take in the world, really can give a space for enjoying who we are.
And just cut yourself a huge amount of personal slack, because humans in general aren't really meant to live. We're all supposed to be hunting and gathering, and we're not supposed to be living in this situation. I suppose we're not well suited to our own civilization in many ways. You might as well give yourself and everyone else as much of a personal break as you can manage.
Exactly. Well, I'd like to thank everybody. We've used just about all of our time, but I think the kind of depth of understanding of just what it is that everyone faces and how we handle it, and is just really helpful, hopefully, to everybody who watches this. So thank you, everybody, for joining me and for being here today. I really, really appreciate all of you doing this for us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Okay.
Thank you very much. And everybody else, oh my gosh, what a bunch of amazing people. I'm glad I got to sort of meet you a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I learned something from you all, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Great to meet all of you.
Leaves me feeling encouraged. So thank you for being part of this.
You have a lot of comments down in the audience chat. Do you see that one?
What?
Hand side. You have a lot of great comments from your session today. Do you see
Oh,
the
wow.
audience?
We didn't see them.
It's on your right hand side, the audience chat. Click on audience chat and you'd be able to see that.
Oh, wow. Oh,
We are,
cool. Somebody says,
sending
this is incredible. Thank you for this. Hands
Yeah.
clapping. This is the chat about, you know, and someone
You're
says,
just-
someone's asking if they're in the right place. Thank you. Great panel. Thank you. It was great. Oh, ladies. And you know, it's, you know, Jennifer and Alyssa, you knew you were going to do this. Everybody else jumped in at the last minute.
Oh, thank you.
And so I just want to say how incredible that is that that Amy and Joy and Marianne, you kind of stepped up to the plate and saved the day, because, you know, it would have been hard for just three of us to talk for a whole hour.
Just thank you.
Speak for yourself.
You're all
Thank
amazing.
you for the honor to be here.
Yeah, no, I remember what I said about giving parents a different perspective, and I'll kind of share this, you know, when I speak to people about, yeah, you don't have to force somebody to be somebody they're not. I think a lot of parents do try that. They're told that they need to do that. And so, yeah, I appreciate your perspectives on that.
Yeah. Oh, they're told that you have to do that. They're going to grow up and have to go out there. And this idea that maybe you can make choices, like Jennifer saying, is, I think, you know, so helpful. Well, good night, everybody. And
Right.
I'm not sure how we leave.
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. What's the
Oh, your
formal?
exit. The pink button.
Is there?
Past the elevator.
Exit. I see, next to the elevator. Okay, bye, everyone. Thanks so
All
much.
right.
Thank you.
Bye.